Hey adventurers, so today is going to be a video about the authors that I'd like to read more of. It's just a list of 10. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. There's a lot of authors. There's a lot of authors who I have read the vast majority of their books, or I have read all of their books or something like that. And so I have chosen not to include those authors on this list. I'm thinking specifically of like my self-published friends like Tori Tekken or Andrew D. Meredith or people like that, where I've read the majority of their books that they have released, and so I'm not including them on the list. There's also some that I've read several of their books, like not just one or two, but a good chunk of them I have read. And although I do want to read more by them, I've read a lot of them already. I'm thinking of like Brian Jakes or J.R. Tolkien or stuff, people like that, where I've read a significant chunk of their books, and yes, I want to read more, but also at the same time I've read a significant amount already. I did have a couple different authors on here that I chose to remove because I found other authors that were a better fit for the location, since I was only doing 10 in this list, but know that there are definitely more as well. One of the ones that I removed was Louis L'Amour. I've read several of his books. I know that I want to read more. I have a ton more to read. I don't need to mention him. I've mentioned him a ton of times on this channel already. Another one would be Charles Dickens. I physically don't own any of his books. I think actually that's not true. I physically own an abridged edition of Oliver Twist, but that is the only one that I personally own. My family has several of them, but I don't physically own other Charles Dickens books. And as much as I would love to read more of him, I just chose to fill his spot with a different author because I wanted to talk about that author instead. All right, so those are kind of like the honorable mentions. Let's actually get into this list now. The first one that I have is Jack Vance. I have so far only read 3 books by him, and that is the Lyonesse trilogy, which is an Arthurian series, or pre-Arthurian. It's pre-Arthur. It takes place on the Elder Isles, which are oftentimes called Lyonesse. Sometimes they are considered to be Atlantis, sometimes both of them, which is kind of the case in the Lyonesse trilogy. So I read that, really loved that series, and so I wanted to read more by him. I have another book by him. I have The Blue World. I feel like I had another one or two, but I don't know where they're at, or I'm not seeing them or something like that, so maybe I didn't. But I have The Blue World, which is like a really weird, it's a sci-fi something or other. A world of water with floating islands made by the thick spreading tops of gigantic ocean growths, big enough to support neat houses, and sea gardens alive with fish of all kinds, rich with, and it just goes on and talks about this. Let's see, the end of it says, the Blue World needed a rebel, one who would give his life if necessary. They found one. This is his story. And so it's kind of like a sci-fi, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm intrigued by this one. But I also just want to try more Vance, which is why I picked up this one when I did. And so yeah, I want to try more Vance. There's definitely a lot more that I can try, and I'm excited to try whatever I end up getting to. The next up on the list is Gene Wolfe, which I have currently read The Wizard Knight, which is a duology that also happens to be Arthuriana, and I greatly enjoyed this one, but I want to read more by him, and I know that there's a lot more out there. There's a lot of ones that I want to try. Castle View comes to mind as one that immediately pops into my mind, also, or Latro, I think is what it's called. It's a series, or Soldier in the Mist, I think is the first book in the series, or something like that. And so there's that series. There's plenty of other Wolfe books besides the Solar Cycle book, The New Sun, and stuff like that. I definitely want to read all those as well at some point, or give them a try at least. And I haven't yet, but Gene Wolfe is definitely another author that I want to give a try to. I don't physically own any more of his books, and I don't think I have any audiobooks. Yeah, I don't think I have any other audiobooks for him, although I probably could find... my library probably has some audiobooks that I could listen to. So anyways, definitely more that I want to read or listen to, and I just haven't yet. Next on the list is Fritz Leiber, or Lieber maybe, I'm not sure. I've heard it both ways, really. And so yeah, Fritz Leiber. I never remember which way is the one that I've heard is probably more accurate, but whatever. Nevertheless, I have currently only read one short story by him, which was titled The Big Time is the book that I have read by him, or the short story. I was looking at my library the other day, and there's a whole bunch of other short stories, audiobooks that are from this author, and so I definitely want to try more of him. But I also physically own Swords Against Death and Swords Against Wizardry, so that's, I think, book 1, if I'm right. Books 1 and... oh no, Swords and Deviltry is the first book, then Swords Against Death. So I have books 2 and 4 of the Spofford and the Grey Mouser series, and I want to try these. I want to read these books. I really should read them in order, which I actually think maybe I forget what the situation is. Swords Against Death can be read as the first book or something like that. I don't remember how it all works, but whatever the case, I want to try more of Liber. I just haven't yet, even though I physically have these two. And I was looking at my library the other day and found several other short stories of his that have audiobooks, and so I will probably get to him fairly soon here, maybe even in December. I'm not sure. I'll definitely want to try though. The next author, I don't physically own any of his books, but I really enjoyed. Let's just tell you, this is Alistair Reynolds. I've read 2 books by him. The first one was House of Suns. The first one that I read by him was House of Suns, and then the second one I read was Eversion. And I really enjoyed Eversion up until the third act. I didn't love the third act as much as acts 1 and 2. Those first 2 acts were just utterly brilliant, and act 3 didn't quite maintain that, which was disappointing, because I was like, from chapter 1, I was like, this if this book sticks the landing, it's going to be one of my favorite books of all time. And it didn't quite stick the landing as hard as I wanted it to. Still good, still very good, but not quite as strong of an ending as I was hoping. And so for that reason, it did not end up becoming one of my favorite books of all time. But it's definitely a very strong book, very good book that I really enjoyed. House of Suns I enjoyed less, but it was also, I was very new to sci-fi. I'm still pretty new to sci-fi, but it was kind of one of my early sci-fi books that I read, and especially for like hard sci-fi. And so it was something that while I understood it, while I did enjoy the book, I did not end up loving it as much as I was hoping to. But I was still interested to read more. And that's the same thing with now, after having read Eversion as well. I definitely want to read more of Reynolds and see if I can find a book of his that could easily be a favorite book of mine, because Eversion was so close. Eversion was so strong up until that third act where it felt a little bit weaker to me. Anyways, so definitely I want to read more Eversion, or I want to read more Reynolds, since I don't have any physically. It's kind of just whatever. I know Liam from Liam's Lyceum has recommended a different one or another one to me. He actually recommended Eversion at the same time as this other one. I can't remember what the other one is called, so I'll have to go back and find that message to figure out what that recommendation was. But I definitely want to read more of Reynolds as well. And funnily enough, these first 6 are all ones that were recommended by Liam at various times. Vance, Wolfe, Lieber, Reynolds, and then 5 is Christie Golden. I actually read my first Golden before, it was actually in the very early days of my channel, of the channel. I read my first Golden, which was Dark Disciple, which is a Star Wars tie-in novel. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that she did a really good job at bringing Star Wars into novel form, because a lot of authors don't do as great with it. But I thought Golden did a good job with it. And I also really liked the story that was being told and the characters that we were following, because it was something adjacent enough, close enough to the main story of the Skywalker saga that we know, but also different enough so that it doesn't feel like we're just using the name brand recognition of Star Wars. We absolutely are, but of Anakin and Luke and stuff like that, we're not following those characters or people even particularly close to those characters, even though the 2 main characters, Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos, have both had interactions with Anakin and Obi-Wan extensively. And so there's that side of things, absolutely, but also just I enjoyed the book. I have another one, which is Inferno Squad, which is the tie-in novel for the Battlefront 2 game that came out in, I don't know when that came out, 2015, 2016, something like that. A while back, maybe 17 or 18 now, I don't remember. But I enjoyed the story and I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the story of this character and the idea of the Inferno Squad and all that was going on with that. It's one that I want to go back to for sure and read more about this character, about this world. And so the fact that we have Inferno Squad, plus it's by Golden, that's a good indicator that I might enjoy it. And also the reason why I say Liam's recommended this author is because he's been reading some of Golden's works, I think more in the, if I remember correctly, in the Forgotten Realms stuff, that because of that he has been recommending her, saying I've enjoyed her books, and so I want to read more of her outside of Star Wars as well. I don't know what else I'll read of hers or what else she has, but it seems like she does do a fair amount of IP established IP tie-in books and stuff like that, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that if they're good, and so far they have been good. And then 6 is another author that Liam has recommended and actually helped me to actually get into, and that is David Gemmell, or Gemmell maybe. This is the reason why is because I read my first Gemmells with him, which was the Stones of Power duology, which starts with, the first book was Ghost King, and the second book is Last Sword of Power. And I read both of those and really enjoyed them. And I read those both with Liam, and so I want to continue reading Gemmell, especially since I know that his Draenei saga is very well received, very famous. And I have several books by Gemmell. I have Legend as well, and then I have Winter Warriors and Dress the Legend, or the first Chronicles of Dress the Legend, and The King Beyond the Gate. I also have Sword in the Storm, and Waylander. So I've got plenty of other Gemmell to read, and I just want to actually do it. I want to actually get to him, because I really enjoyed the 2 that I read. I know that the Draenei is very well received, as well as several of the other series by him. And so I want to continue. I want to read more of Gemmell as well, because I just had a good time with his books. Number 7 is Erik Larson. This is author of The Devil in the White City, as well as Isaac's Storm is the other one that I can think of off the top of my head. And he's written several other books. He tends to write more of a nonfiction novel, a novelized version of a nonfiction story, of a true story. And so I enjoy that. I really, this was my favorite book of the year in 2023, I think it was. And had an absolute blast reading this book. It's so much fun, very interesting, lots of information in here. I'm not sure how accurate it was. After I've seen some things since then that I'm like, I'm not sure how accurate that all was. But for the part that I was paying attention to, it seemed very accurate. It seemed very realistic and just really interesting to me, which was primarily the White City storyline, which is the Chicago World's Fair 1893. The 1893 World's Fair, which was also known as the World's Columbian Exposition, 1893. Yeah. And I had a great time with this book. I want to read more of his works and see if I enjoy his other works as much as I did this one. Next, I have another Arthurian series, and that is, an author who wrote Arthurian series, and that is Stephen R. Lawhead. Of course, I'm referring to the Pendragon Cycle by Stephen R. Lawhead. And I've read these 5 books. The 5 books are Taliesin, Merlin, Arthur, Pendragon, and Grail. And so I've got books 1 and 4 in the series physically, and I've read all the 5. There's also another prequel book titled Aurelia that I have not yet read, and there is a kind of sort of semi-sequel called, it might just be Avalon. I don't think it's just Avalon. There's some other subtitle or some other words that go before Avalon or something like that. But there's more books that are kind of related to this series that I need to read. Aurelia just came out this year, and there wasn't an audiobook last I checked, and so I haven't listened to that one yet, and I haven't physically bought it and read it yet. But I do want to read more. I do want to read Aurelia, and I really want to try some of his other series. I know he's got lots of other series. He's got, I believe he has one that is Robin Hood based, and I want to try that one too, because Robin Hood is another favorite myth, character, legend of mine, and so I want to get to that series, try that series out as well. But he's also got a whole bunch of other stuff, and I want to try it because I really, especially Taliesin and Merlin, those 2 books were just incredible. I really loved those, and the other books were good. The first 2 books are fantastic. The other 3 are good, decent to good, depending on which book or which part of the book you're in. But the series as a whole is very, very good. And so I definitely want to read more of Lawhead. 2 more authors here. Number 9 then would be Michael Crichton. And this is, I physically own Pirate Latitudes. I have not yet read it. The 2 Crichtons that I have read are Jurassic Park and The Lost World. So the 2 books in the Jurassic Park duology. And I really enjoyed those. I had a lot of fun with them. I want to get back to reading more of this. I've heard great things about Pirate Latitudes. I've heard great things about Crichton in general. I think he has a book called Sphere that is a science fiction one, might be time travel. I don't remember, but I know he's got a whole bunch of other books, and I want to try some more books. So there's more authors. There's absolutely more authors that I could include on this list that I was just thinking about. But Michael Crichton is one that I really want to, especially since I've read 2 of his books and I physically own a third one. I want to try some more of his books and see what I can think of it, what I think of it. And then the last author that I have on this list is Zane Grey. I physically own 4 of his books: Desert Gold, Nevada, Volume 1, Tales of Lonely Trails, which is a collection of his short stories, I think, and then The Desert of Wheat. Currently, I have read Desert Gold and The Desert of Wheat. Really, really enjoyed both of those. Definitely had a ton of fun with them. I think he's got one called Riders of the Purple Sage that is fairly popular, fairly well known, if I'm remembering correctly, and so I want to try that one as well. But I also, since I physically own 2 more of his books, a short story collection and another novel, I want to get to those as well and see what I think of those, because I really enjoyed this one. Was kind of really what I was expecting from a Western novel, and I enjoyed that a lot. But then this one, Zane Desert of Wheat, was something very different from what I was expecting, especially based on what I knew about it. It's a World War One, right at the outset of World War One, and this character is trying to go fight, and he's unable to immediately. And I thought the story was about him going and fighting in World War One, and that's not what the story is about. And it's just fascinating. It's a very interesting story. It's very dry in a lot of ways, but also that the dryness of that story makes sense with the story being told. It actually adds to it. And so it's just a fascinating, really enjoyable read. I had a lot of fun with both of the grades that I've read, and I want to read more. So those are 10 authors that I want to try more by, and I have most of them, as you can already see. I have other books physically by them, with a handful: Eric Larson, Gene Wolfe, and Stephen R. Lawhead. And then Alistair Reynolds are the ones that I don't physically already own more books by. And so I want to try more by them, but there's definitely other authors as well that I could mention. I mentioned a few at the beginning. Another one that popped into my mind was Tim Powers. I read On Stranger Tides, and I wouldn't mind reading some more by him. So there's definitely some more authors. David Farland is another good choice for that. I've read his Rune Lord series, and I've read he wrote one Star Wars, what's it called? He wrote one Star Wars children's novel that I've read, like a chapter book type thing that I've read, and I've enjoyed what I've read by him, and I want to read more by him. I just haven't yet. So there's definitely more authors as well that I could mention, that I could talk about. But I wanted to focus on those 10 because there were 10 options that were really easy to come up with. And this was a video idea where I was like, okay, I need a video idea. What am I going to film today? And I scrolled through my list of video ideas, and I saw this. It's like, that's it, that's the one right there. And I immediately listed those first 4, and then came up into my room and looked at my bookshelves and was like, okay, and here's the rest of them. And so it was a very quick video for me to come up with and to write, if you want to say it that way. So anyways, that's all that I really have for this. I will stop rambling. I will let you go. Please feel free to recommend me any books by these authors. I would, if there's one that really stands out to you as something that I should definitely try, absolutely give me the recommendation, and I will try and prioritize that, because all of these authors I want to try more by, and I have options, but I also don't know when I will get to them. And if somebody can give me a recommendation and pitch it so that I really want to, that's going to push me a long ways into reading it first. Anyways, I will stop rambling now. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.